Hello everyone and welcome back to our JRPG series. Last episode we started work on our field, and in this episode we're going to work on the transition between field and battle with a nice cool smashing screen effect. So let's get started. So inside your folders for the UI you'll find the transitions folder, and in there will be the glass shatter mesh. And here's a mesh I've already made for you, so you can use this by all means. I'll show you how I made this anyway using Blender. To make the glass shatter model in Blender, I had a cube and I scaled that to the rough size that I wanted, so like this. Okay, and then I want to make sure I've got cell fracture enabled on my add-ons, so you'll see it on the add-ons. Search for cell, got it ticked on, and I'm going to go to edit mode for this, and I'm going to right click, subdivide this a few times. And before I factor it, I want to make sure I've UV mapped it into a 0 to 1 space. So in other words, just planar mapped it. I'm going to go to the X orthographic view here. Go to UV editing up here. Change it back to X there. And hit U on it and go project from view bounds. Okay, so it looks like this on the UV editing. Back to modeling page. And that's now done. So now I can do the cell fracture. I'm going to go to object mode, object, and do quick effects, cell fracture. And I've set the source limit here to 100 and the noise to 1. And we're going to click OK. And there it makes the whole thing for me. And that's all mapped as well to the UV correctly as well. So I exported that out and then imported it into Unreal. And I did not combine them all because I want them all to be individual physics actors. So they have to be all separate things like this. Okay. Now when you do import it in, you will find there is this one glass mesh plane which we won't be using, so make sure you don't use this for what we go out to do here. So the first thing we need to do is set up the shatter object. So we're going to right click here, create a blueprint class, use actor, and call this one the Shatter Effect. And open this up. And in here, we want to select all of these meshes except for the first one, the plane. We're going to drag this out all in to here, add all these meshes to here. Okay, and we should have a full mesh in view for our wall here. Okay. More on this in a moment. I'm going to come back to this in a minute. We're then going to set up the rendering of this. So the way this works is we're going to set up a camera that will keep like a picture of the environment as we are playing. So we need to go to our field player character here and edit the components. On the player character on there, add components. We're going to search for scene capture 2D. This will be attached to the camera, so make it attached to the camera. And it should be in the exact same place as the camera. So just reset all these variables over here to be exactly the same place as it. Okay, and that's that. Next we're going to go to the details down here, scroll down to see texture target, and we're going to create a new render target, and we're going to put this in the UI transitions, and we'll call this one viewport render. Save. And we want to change this, actually not change this, sorry, we want to leave this as it is, but we do want to change here is to capture every frame and capture a movement and turn these off. Otherwise it'll be capturing all the time when we don't actually want to do that. We just want to capture it when we want to capture it. So that'll do there. Then we go to the event graph and go to where we're using our H key for temporarily sakes to make them transition. We're going to go before the open level, we're going to disconnect this. We're going to take that scene capture component out and tell it to capture the scene. Basically, take a photograph of it from that point of view. Okay, now we need to make the UI menu for this, not menu for it, the material for it. So go to transitions, right click on the viewport render and create material of this. And we'll call this one viewport render matte. And this is what's going to be attached to our object. So on here, we need to make this be part of the object. So we can leave this pretty much as is. You can do electrical tweaks to it if you want to do tweaks to it, but we're going to leave it as is. Like that. And then when it's finished doing that, we're going to go over to our shatter object. And we're going to select all of our meshes in here. So, viewport. And I'm going to give them all the material that we just made. That'd be viewport, render, matte. And because they all had the correct UV when I imported them all in, we should see the texture of the character there in the middle. Okay. File and save. So that has now put the texture onto there. Now when we do this, we do want to make sure that the texture actually is of a decent size. At the moment, by default, it's quite small and therefore quite blurry. So open up your viewport render. And in here, we're going to change the size in the X and Y to our 20. We'll do 1920 by 1080. Save and close that. Okay. That's a shatter effect. So that will take the picture and put it on here. We then want this to also take a picture that we can use for a widget. Because this is going to be animated and make the physics of it fly apart with the glass. And in its place, we need to film it basically to put onto a widget. So I'm going to click on the root here, add component, and do a scene capture component 2D. And I want to just zoom this out enough to see the whole thing. So currently, the texture target we want to change to render target, and we want to set that to same folder, but this would be called shatter render. Okay. So to test this working and looking okay, we want to make sure that the viewport here in the thumbnail matches what we want to see here. So I don't want to see any black edges around this. I just want to see just the wall basically. I'm going to move that close enough to affect that, compile that, and you should see that image change after each compile. Okay, this may need a bit of tweaking to get looking just right, but you do as much as you need to do here. Okay, next we're going to add a radial component to this. So go to radial and do radial force. And we're going to put this just behind the object here. And but actually we want this to be no, that'd be fine. So the radial force here, we want to make it bigger. So impulse radius here to 1000. And impulse strength, we'll change that to 10,000. And force strength here to 1000. And again, you can tweak these numbers later on as you're testing this out. Okay. Okay, so this scene capture component 2D. We want it to not render or capture, sorry, on movement, but we do want to capture every frame. So it's like a movie. It's like capturing every single picture. But we only want it to render this, nothing else. So on the event graph, on begin play, drag out your scene capture component 2D and do set show only actors. And in here, we're going to drag show only actors, do make, and put self in here. So it only renders itself. Go to the scene capture component 2D, go down to the bottom, and tell it to primitive render mode here, change it from render scene primitives to use show only list. So now it will only render itself. Close this. And now that's set up, we can work on the widget. So we're going to go right click, using interface widget blueprint, and then we call this one the battle transition. And for this, we need to make a material for our shatter render. So right click on shatter render, create material, and we'll call this one shatter render matte. But this one will be a UI material. So click on here and change it from surface to user interface. Plug that in there. And we also want to make this almost transparent as well, so we can see through it and see through the cracks as they expand and grow. So what we're going to do is change it from opaque to opacity masked, and put the alpha here 1-, and put in the opacity mask there. The 1- is needed because when you do the alpha check, basically only alphas out what it sees. So you need to flip it around so it renders out everything else. Hit apply on this, and that should be okay. And we'll close that. We go to the battle transition, and we're just going to add this to the canvas as a image. And we want that to be stretched across the whole screen. Set the offsets here to 0, 0. I'm going to scroll down here, and we're going to set the image here first of all to the static image it has. Okay, so at the moment static image is only a object material, so what I want to do is make another one of these. So create material from this again, and we'll call this render matte, this one UI matte. Okay, and we're just going to change that to a user interface material. Okay, hit apply, and that's it. So the widget will start off with this as well as the shatter wheel, and it will then switch over to it when we go into the new level. So to change this image over here to our viewport render UI matte, there it is. Compile and save that. Okay, so that's the transition widget coming up. And what we want to do is on the player character, when we push the button, we want to capture the scene, and then we want to create widget. And the widget we want to create here is the battle transition, and add that to viewport. So we won't plug in open level, but to test this out, we should see when I push H, the image basically like freeze, like so. Okay, and that weird stretching is because the viewport here is a bit off, because it's squished. But when we get into the game, we won't notice it. But as you see, it's frozen. I can't move, can't do nothing. It's all there. Okay, so that's all good. Excellent. We now need to make it go to a level. So let's go to our transitions in our UI, and on the widget here we need to know which level we want to go to. So in the variables, we're going to do level destination, and this will be a string value, and we make that editable and exposed on spawn. And then on the construct, we're going to check what game mode we're in. So get game mode, and we're going to cast to the battle. No, we'll do the field game mode. There we go. So if it's in the field game mode, we want it to go to the next level. So we're going to do open level by name, and the name is going to be level destination. And you may want to put a delay in this so it doesn't do it straight away. So we'll put a little delay in there. Do what, 1 second maybe. But that'll be fine for this. Okay. So let's test that out. Well, not test that out. Sorry, we have to go to the character first and refresh this create battle transition widget, and we should see the level destination appear. For now, we're just going to type it in. So mine is streets arena. Compile and save that. Okay, so now let's test it out. So when I push H, the widget will appear for a second before going off to the new level. Okay, so That works. So what we're going to do now is make it so that when it goes to the battle transition, it adds that widget again, but this time it will do something different. It will create the shatter effect. So let's go to the battle game mode. And at the start of the battle game mode, to begin play, we're going to do create widget. And we're going to choose the battle transition. And we're going to take the return value and add to viewport. Now we don't have to add the level to destination here because we're not going to be using it. So we can leave it like so. Then on the battle transition, this cast here will fail because we're no longer in the game mode when it's first created now. So on cast failed here, we're going to do something different. So we're going to do a spawn actor from class. And we're going to choose the shatter effect. Now it's going to ask for a transform. This literally can be anywhere, it doesn't really matter. We're going to take this out and do make transform. And I'll just put it down 2000 in down below. Doesn't really matter. I then want to tell it to switch the image where you're looking at here from the viewport one to the shatter one. So let's take the image out. Do get, and we're going to do set brush from material. Put that in there. And the material we're going to look at is going to be the shatter render matte. Compile and save that. So now that'll do this, and we'll put a little delay in there to remove it from the screen. So we'll do 2 seconds. Or we do remove from parent. Okay. So we're now going to go to our shatter game object in our UI folder. And we need to tell this thing to simulate physics on all of these. So select all of them. And simulate physics turned on. I'm going to turn off mass. And actually, no, I'll leave mass as it is. So leave it as default. But I'm going to turn off gravity, so they sort of fly out appropriately. And on begin play of this, once it's done this, we're going to take this radial force and we're going to do fire impulse. And that will break it all apart and send it all flying. Okay, let's test this and see how far we've got. So I'm going through here, hit H. Not too bad. So also you need to increase the quality of our final render there. So let's go back to our UI transitions, the shatter render, and on here change this to 1920 by 1080. Hit save. And on the shatter render here, we want to change that then to linear color to fix that error there. Okay. Next, I might actually change this to use opacity rather than opacity mask. So if I change that from mask to translucent, put that in there. See how that looks with that instead. Play. And if I go, I'll wait for the shaders to compile. Okay. And now if I hit H, not bad. So a few things we can do to improve this as well is we can make it animate the explosion a little bit better and animate that fade a little bit better at the end there, so you don't see them left on the screen. So let's go to the glass shatter effect and let's up the radial force on this. I'm going to put in this as 9 and this as another 0. And let's see how that looks now. We don't want it too fast, but we want it fast enough to clear the screen, hopefully. Otherwise, we can do a fade out. Okay. So another way you could do the effect as well, if you want to change it up, you can just go into the battle effect here, and turn on gravity again. Do enable gravity. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it rotate so that it falls towards the camera. And the camera here is behind it, so I have to rotate it in minus 90 in the Y. So this is positive, so positive in the Y, sorry. So rotate that positive in the Y, and that will fix that. So if I go to now the battle transition, and on the make transform here, I'm going to do positive 90 in the Y. Compile. Go back to the shatter effect, and I'm going to turn off the fire impulse here. So they should just drop. And because they are physical objects, they will clash off each other. So let's hit play on this and see how this looks. H. That looks really cool. Yeah, we like that a lot. Okay. So once again, we'll test this out again, see how it looks. Run around, H. Looking pretty good. I like it a lot. Okay, so what we're going to do now is add a sound effect to this, and that's the transition done. So we're going to do battle transition, and on this field cast here and failed, after we've done spawn actor shatter transit. Actually, we're doing a shatter. We go to shatter effect, and on begin play, we get rid of the radial force for me, and we're going to do play sound 2D. And in your sound folder, you've actually got a glass shatter effect you can use. Okay, so let's hear this, what it sounds like in game. Not bad. Okay. So the last thing we're going to do here is going to fix the player character a bit in the world. At the moment, their rotation is a bit dodgy. So we go to the field player character, go to character movement, and scroll down to the rotation settings and turn on orient rotation to movement. That's one thing I forgot last time I edited the character. Now we have full range of movement around here, and we can initiate combat just by pushing H. Remember, that's only temporarily. We will be changing that to be based on steps. Excellent. And there we have it. We've now got a nice transition between the field gameplay and the battle gameplay. In the next episode, we're going to go through and explain how to create it so that when we go into a battle, we get a different enemy setup than we usually would have. We don't get the same 3 spiders. It will change based upon the enemy pool that we've indicated in the field. So join us right now on the episode over on patreon.com/Ryan Laley, where all my videos are available for early access from just $1 a month. Massive thank you to all my patrons and YouTube members for their continued support. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye everyone.